Natalie Macneil!
Hey.
Hi, I'm so excited. For those of you that don't know, this is Natalie Macneil, and we are here in a place in LA. And actually, the last time I was here, I was just saying, we were literally sitting just over there at that desk, strategizing about my business.
That's
because
right.
This right here is like literally one of the OG girl bosses, like not even just girl boss, just boss in general. So I met you last year through Alexi, but I have had a girl crush on this one since for like, I don't even know, like must have been at least 5 years. I think I knew.
Oh, really? I don't even think I knew that.
Yeah, so I just knew of, so she has a business, She Takes on the World, and I remember finding that so many years ago, and like you really were one of the beginning women to really do this online business strategy work that is literally everywhere now, right? Like you were really one of the pioneers of this space. So
over a decade.
Over a decade ago, like this right here, stop, drop, and listen to this woman because it's the truth. You're the truth, and I'm super excited to be jamming with you. You know, you've got an Emmy, you had a production company, you have so many, you know, you've sat and facilitated with Richard Branson. You have all of these things, right, that many people aspire to, and many things that create credibility for you. But you're also just like such a beautiful soul. And when we're walking up to your place just now, I said she's such an onion. You're literally this onion that I just feel like right now you're in this peeling away of all of these layers of, it's not even like an old you, because it's incorporating all of like who you have been and who you're becoming, and also stepping into sharing that with the world in such a bigger way. And I'm really excited to dive into that with you.
I hope I'm like a sweet onion.
Yeah, like one of those, I love onions.
Really overpowering ones.
No, you've been like baked and you're juicy and you've got sweet and you're like really
like caramelized
onion.
Yeah.
Yes, who doesn't like a caramelized onion? Please. Yum. So talk to me a little bit about this process that you're in right now. Like this sort of shedding and the stepping into, like we were talking about before, like power, presence, purpose, play, like all of this magical, this journey that you're on, and just dive into a little bit with me. And what maybe also prompted it for you to sort of start owning that more?
I think my life used to be very compartmentalized. Mm-hmm. I had business Natalie and a way that I showed up in business.
Yep.
I had blogger Natalie and a voice that I blogged in. I had on stage or out in the world Natalie. I had all these different compartments, and there wasn't a single one of them that felt fully like me.
Yeah.
But I had a story around what would happen if I brought all of me to my brand and to my business. And we're going back like a decade ago. So when I was doing meditation training as a teenager, and when I remember when I talked about meditation 10 years ago, people thought that was really woo.
There was no
people that were
meditation
like, what?
And no unplugged.
Totally. So when I went away and just like went offline to meditate for a few weeks, like just disconnected and went and spent some time doing that, people thought I was nuts.
Right.
It's a totally different world that we're living in today. Yeah. And I think it was things like that started creating these compartments for me in my life. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point where I knew that I had to make some changes, because whenever we're out of alignment like that, whenever we're not being fully authentic, that's what drains us. When we have burnout, I mean, I've worked with thousands of women.
Yep.
And when women have burnout, when they're losing passion, they're not fulfilled anymore in their business, it's usually because they're not in full alignment with the business, or they don't feel fully themselves in the business. They feel like they have to pretend or show up a certain way. And that's fucking exhausting.
Seriously.
It's so exhausting. And I was there for a while. Mm-hmm. And so now I don't want to hide anything. There's like a new way that I am in my business, and my move really is the catalyst for all that change. So 3 years ago, I moved from Canada to the US.
It's been 3 years
my
already.
Business.
Oh my
it's
goodness.
been 3 years in LA, a year in New York before that. So it was actually 4 years ago that I did my move.
New York.
Mind blowing. Like it has gone by fast in some ways, slower in other ways.
Yeah.
And in that process, I had to crawl into a cocoon and let myself completely dissolve, because I left a relationship I had been in for over a decade.
Just casual, just a decade.
My home. I left my family and my friends, and I moved pretty much further than when I moved to LA. That was the furthest place I could move in the US. I chose the furthest place, other than like San Diego, the furthest place from my home in Toronto. And in that dissolving, when I was coming back into form, if you will, I got to really sit in a space of, how do I want it to look now? What's going to be different in this next chapter? And part of that for me was knowing that I wanted to be fully expressed in everything that I do.
No, I love that, because I want to ask you about what prompted you to move, because I think that that's a really important piece as well. But I love, from the Natalie that I knew sort of from online, you do definitely get this experience of very professional, very knowledgeable, and then I remember meeting you and I was like, oh my goodness, you're like a wild child. And like, the more I get to know you, like, again, this layer is like, oh, you're like really a wild child. Yes, girl. And it's so different to like who I thought that you were, which I know is obviously like exactly what you're just saying. So it's so fun and I'm so excited that the world gets to like really see and experience like the trueness of like all of your magic, because there's so much in there. But I want to ask about why, like, what prompted you to move? Because I know that a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who want to create amazing things, or just people in general, we get niggles and nudges to like, you know, move or create things for ourselves. Or, you know, I have lots of people that ask me how I'm in the US, and, you know, people who want to create these big drastic changes, but for some reason they don't, or they tell themselves they can't, or they just don't actually end up actually making that big decision to do that. And you, I know, had like because it's easy to say, oh, it's easy for you to move to the US, but I know you had a huge tax bill you had to pay, you had a huge business, you were entrenched, you had the family. So what like really prompted you to actually go, I'm doing this? Because it was a big decision.
It took me a while to be brave enough to take that step. And if you have any area of your life that you want to be different a year from now, 5 years from now, that's going to require change. And I am always focused on that long term, and what am I doing right now to invest in my long term joy, fulfillment, profits, all of it. And
that's a takeaway right there.
The feeling,
long-term vision.
And sometimes we have to make short-term sacrifices for that long-term vision. And that was the case for me. And it got to a point where I knew that I was willing to go through the pain short-term. And by short-term, I mean, it was a couple years of really being in it and being in the energy of moving, which took away from my business growth, which took away from all these other things I could be putting my energy into. But I knew, and I could see future Natalie so happy, like walking the beach in Los Angeles, surrounded by her soul family. And I wrote myself a series of letters, Dear Future Me. It's still a practice that I do. It's in my next book, The Rituals.
We're going to talk about that.
Dear Future Me letters. And there were letters where I'm talking about, there's one that was so profound that I opened on my birthday last year. And I always put open dates on it. So this envelope said open on your 32nd birthday.
And by the way, she's only like 34 now?
33.
33. I was just trying to throw an extra year on you to make myself feel better.
I had this letter to open on my 32nd birthday, which is when I knew that the move would be complete by. Actually, it still wasn't complete, but it was almost there. And it was a letter that I wrote in the immigration room at the airport when I was making my official entry into the US for the first time as a permanent resident.
And so you were writing from that stance, or you actually wrote it in that room?
I just said bye to my family and friends, and had my whole life in 2 suitcases, and I was sitting in that room, and I just said, like, dear future me. And that's how I always start these letters. I said, right now I am sitting here, I just said bye to everyone, I'm like sobbing uncontrollably, everyone is looking at me, I've never felt a depth of pain like this before. And yet I know, and I can see you surrounded by your soul family. I can see you in a place that you love, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and that's what's keeping me going right now. And it's a long letter, but I read this for the first time in front of my friends at my 32nd birthday. So I'm like surrounded by all these people I love, and I'm like, it was so worth it.
Oh, wow.
And the feeling for me actually that I kept getting was I would go out into the world and my business was growing, and I would come back to where I was living in Canada. And the feeling was like, the exact feeling was I was a tree planted in a small pot in a living room.
Yeah.
So you can plant a tree in a small pot and its roots only have so much room to expand. And then you can repot the tree. And I feel like I had repotted the tree by getting a nicer place in Canada, by creating more of my ideal lifestyle there, but I still knew that that was not the place that I should be for the next stage of my journey. But I stayed there because I was in the relationship, because of family, because it was comfortable. And then there was one time where I just came back and I was like, I can't repot myself anymore. The only thing that's going to be for my like highest path forward is to be planted outside. Like I'm a tree.
You're like a redwood. You're a redwood.
Like the roots need as much room as they need to expand. And I knew that for me that was in the US. And so I decided, and I tied my immigration with a couple really big goals, like a book deal. And said, like, if these 3 things happen, I know that I have to go, and I have to go now. And that ended up all happening. And still a lot of pain in moving, and change can be painful.
Very much so.
Change can be very painful.
Yeah, and I think that that's important to note too, because it's like, it's not always going to be easy. Like, it's definitely not always going to be easy, and I think it's so important to highlight that and know that, like you mentioned, like, it takes sacrifice, whether that, you know, is however that shows up for anybody, but there is still that knowing, and this whole podcast is called Answer the Call, right? Because it's about it's knowing, like, we are always getting those little calls, those little nudges, and we have to answer them because it's leading us to, you know, I believe it's just leading us to our greatest potential. But that doesn't mean that answering the call is always easy, because it does take sacrifice. It does take moving things around. It can take pain. It takes loss.
Totally. Your dream life and like that calling and like exactly where you want to be. Around that is like a ring of fire and a whole like obstacle course and shards of glass.
It's like the Hunger Games, man.
And totally. And it's like, are you willing to walk into the fire knowing that a lot is going to be burned away in you getting to that place that you want to be? And are you brave enough to step into that knowing that everything that you want is going to be on the other side?
Yes. I love that, because it really just is, you know, because it's so easy to look at people creating the lives that they want and just feel like, because I don't know about a lot of things you had to go through, let alone the people that just see you on social media and see you get a book deal and see this, and it's like, we can't see all of the actual work that has gone into creating, you know, it's like the 10-year overnight success, right? It's like, you know, the actual work, the sacrifice, the late nights, everything that went into getting to that point. And I just want you guys all to know that, so that you can realize, like, just because you have to go through sacrifices or you feel like it's hard, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It doesn't mean that you're not making the right decisions. It just means that there are going to be these sacrifices to create, you know, an epic life that is by design.
And I've learned to see them not even as sacrifices anymore, but as investments that I'm making into my future, like deposits that I'm making into the
future Natalie,
future Natalie, future joy, future dreams. And when I stay focused on that, it feels easier to move through whatever's coming up now.
Oh, I love that. I mean, it's the same with me being here. Like, there's so much that has to happen. America is not the easiest place necessarily to just decide to be.
It's not.
To be in. There's a lot of red tape and things, and to just even literally be allowed here. But it was the same for me too. I knew that it just, big fish in small pond, or a small, you know, medium fish in a big pond. It's just, there's a limit to the capacity that you can create when your surroundings are, you know, like, I believe you can't become what you can't see. So if you are the biggest fish, then how do you know that next level, the next jump? But when you're surrounded by everybody in that same vortex, it's just so inspiring. Like, we have the most amazing community of people here in LA that are just all phenomenal entrepreneurs and humans, and like just everything about them is just so next level.
I love my life so much.
I know.
I love it so much, and it feels very hard fought, actually. And I think that's why I'm in a place of even deeper gratitude, and just know that the pain and the depth of your pain, the depth of what it takes to get to where you want to be, it allows the opposite to be even more amazing. Like on the other side of pain, once you go through that and you like reach the depths of it, the joy that is possible for you to experience is beyond any joy you've experienced before. So going through all of that brought me into a space of such like presence and gratitude here. I ride my bike down to the ocean for the sunset in the evenings, and I'm just like, stream of gratitude, which is a ritual from my next book. I just go on a gratitude, like just a flow of it. Like, I am so grateful to be in this place. I am so grateful for these waves. I'm so grateful for these mountains. I'm so grateful that I've created this life, and for all the people in my life. I'm so grateful that I had the courage to step into it. I'm so grateful that I have all of these opportunities and doors that continue to open for me. Like, I just go on and on and on and on. And I mean, that gratitude makes you high.
Oh my God, I literally...
It's like one of my favorite things to do, stream of gratitude.
And it's one of those things that, it's like, okay, yeah, gratitude. Like, it's one of those things that we hear all the time, but the actual reality is that so many of us aren't practicing that on a ritual, on a ritualistic basis.
Feel it, like take it into your body. Like,
yes, oh my gosh. So I just was driving back from San Diego to this morning. I got like my soul was like desiring like a really nice car. So I got this like really nice BMW convertible. I just like wanted some wind in my hair. I was like, that's what I need right now. And I was like driving back on the freeway today, and I was just like, had the top down, the wind in my hair, and the song was playing, and I was just like, I was like yelling, because I was like, basically no one can hear anything, you're on the freeway, and I was there was no one around me, and I was just like, I'm so grateful like for this life. I'm like, yes, thank you, because you just have these moments. And I love that you said that around the it's like reference, right? We can't actually fully experience and know the depth of the gratitude, the depth of like grace, the depth of like the blessing, if we haven't had to go through things, because it is relative, right? Like unless you've really had to go through something and felt that pain and felt that like, you can't truly, you don't have you're like, now this feels, so it's a yin and a yang. And I think we live in a world where we are programmed to believe that everything is supposed to just be like it's supposed to just be. So when one little thing doesn't work out, it's like, why is this not working out? Why does this go wrong? Like, what have I done? And then that creates more suffering, and then there's more resistance to our experience, and then it just makes things worse. Rather, depression, like all of that. This expectation that life should just be always smooth, and so there's no joy in that either, though. Like, your aliveness is in all of the contrast, and we actually need the contrast. We really do need that contrast. Yes, I agree.
It's like when it rains, when I spent 2 weeks in Seattle and it rained every day, and then the last day I was there, it was like the most beautiful, perfect, sunny day with like sunbeams everywhere. People are outside, like everyone is outside. Everyone is grateful. Everyone's beaming, like so much joy, because we need the contrast. We need the rain to appreciate the sun. We need the pain to appreciate the pleasure and the joy. Like we need it all. Life would be boring if it was great all the time.
Totally. I know, it's one of those things we're like, would it though? But it's like, actually though, because again, you just don't have the reference point. So it's just a new normal, but you don't get that, and I think that being an entrepreneur is signing up for the lives of the highs and the lows, because, I was listening to a podcast that you were on with Libby Lou, that you called her this morning, and, we're talking about the, entrepreneurship as being one of the biggest personal development journeys.
Absolutely.
Ever, which I totally agree. And I think we do really sign up for that up and that down, because there's so much more extremes and so much more instability like with it. So before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about the space that you've been creating, which I'm so obsessed with as well, because I just had like 6 months of really just focusing on play and space, and like it was so...
We need those periods sometimes, like everything is seasonal.
It was the best thing I've ever done, and
I'm so
I really am like, I gave myself full permission to experience it fully, rather than like think I should be doing lots of things, because I was like, I know I'm not going to be in this space forever. This feels like a really delicious, playful, juicy place that I'm in, and I really am gonna just be in it, right? Because I think so many times we don't actually allow ourselves to like be in the experience.
Be in it and see what's available in just being in it. Because there's always things being revealed to you in these different spaces. No matter what you're going through. And it's all eventually working out for your highest path forward. But I love that you just dove in and decided to embrace it all.
Yeah, because it's like I'm not in that space anymore because I have a lot going on, but also that context I'm bringing with me. So talk to me a little bit about this, because I know that this is something you mentioned around, you know, creating the space and still being able to be abundant and still being able to actually like move things forward from this context, because I know like burnout has just been diagnosed as syndrome. I only recently found that out, so I keep talking about it because it's just crazy how rife that is, and the fact that we're building these businesses, but people just keep burning out because of the way that we're doing it, I think is just no longer working. So talk to me a little bit about what's drawn you into this place and this new way that you're doing business, and like the lessons and the learnings that you're getting from it. And then also we can talk a little bit about your book too.
Amazing. So I've just come off of a few months of space. Where I didn't do very much work, except I was writing and working on the books. So
that's like Natalie Mcneil's version.
I know.
Writing a book.
Like this year, I feel like I've had a lot of space, but I've had to deliver 2 manuscripts.
Casual.
But I haven't been on social media or creating new content outside of having to do the 2 manuscripts. So it's about prioritizing. In the past, I would have been like, just because I have 2 manuscripts due this year, it does not mean that I am not going to stop doing my weekly videos and the podcasts and publishing new content regularly, writing my columns, like speaking at events. Usually I'd be like, I will take on those 2 manuscripts and not drop any other balls. And this time I was like, I'm focused more on how can my business fit into my life now? Instead of how can I fit life into my business schedule? And in making that shift, everything changed for me, because now it's a matter of, okay, I can fit the 2 manuscripts in, and I'm going to continue to serve my clients. That's most important to me. And then everything else has got to be on hold for now. And that's just the season that I'm in, and that's okay, because I'm no longer willing to sacrifice my pleasure and my play and the things that actually fuel me to be able to do the rest of the work that I want to be doing. And sometimes we get so focused on short-term success. We get so focused on like, I need to hit this goal this quarter and it has to be this way. I'm playing the long game. And I have been burnt out very badly. It took me months and months to recover from it after not the last book, the book before, after I did the Conquer kit. I did a big tour for that. It was a really big launch. And I was getting up at like 3 a.m. A driver would pick me up. I would go and do radio shows in the morning, like crazy schedule.
Full on.
And I burnt out so hard, like just crashed after. And I do not want to be in that place again.
I hate
and I am in it. Our careers are going to be decades long. I'm focused on the long term, no longer focused on these short term gains. And that feels like a really good space to be. And what allows me to continue growing and allows the brand to continue growing is not like more posts on social media or more video content. It's usually me enjoying my life. And from that place, things miraculously happen. And I know some of you might be rolling your eyes at that. And I may have too at some point in the past, but I had such an inner conflict between my warrior CEO and this like playful inner child, like wild child that just wants to explore all of the world. And for me, the exploration of the world and all of these adventures that I go on strangers that I meet and have experiences with. For me, that is how I come to know myself. Yeah. And I wrote a poem that goes with my book, The Rituals, and there's a line in it that's, we are mirrors that need each other because I come to know me through you. And it's every experience that I have out in the world, every person that I meet is revealing something new to me. Yeah. And that's actually how I figure everything else out. Everything else grows from that place. Yeah. And so it is essential for me to have that space. Yeah. And I just took the summer off pretty much. It was absolutely magical. I have fallen deeply in love. That has opened so much for me as well. Yeah. And being in that relationship and just going off and having adventures again and not being so attached to, I need to make this much this quarter and I need to have this profit margin. And I just love my life is a little simpler now than it used to be. And in that simplicity, so much has opened. Yes. It's just the most magical place to be. I love my life so much right now.
Yes. You're speaking my language so much because it's like I think this is such a trap that people get caught into of like, just focusing on the business. And that was one of my big messages recently too, of what's the point if it's just about the business? Like if you're sacrificing your life, the business has no purpose. Like what is the point if you're just constantly putting off actually living until you get some arbitrary place with the business? Like the reason we become entrepreneurs is for freedom, is to have a lifestyle, is to obviously make an impact and all of those things. But like how can they have to merge, like you were saying, like come into full alignment so that it feeds off each other rather than they're in two separate baskets. And and the thing is, the irony is, even not irony, but like we end up making more from that place anyway, right?
Absolutely. Because it's like, and that's been true
are a
for
magnet.
me.
Yeah.
And I think the fitting your business into your life is a big shift that I invite all of you to step into. And what I mean by that too is making sure that your business model fits the way that you want to live your life. Like don't try to fit into a business model just because somebody else is doing it. You get to create the kind of business that you want to have and the kind of life that you want to be living. And only you can decide what that is.
No, I mean, I couldn't agree more with all of that. And one of the things that came to me on Saturday on my very glorious, amazing mushroom journey that I went on, my solo retreat was so amazing. And even just having that space, like giving yourself that space out of, everyday life and a beautiful environment, which I always think is so important. Like environment is so big for me. And just having that space to kind of reflect, and then just, like I was crying tears of gratitude and I had so many breakthroughs. And also it's just I realized was just that it's just as easy for the universe to like manifest some big thing for you than a small thing. But like so many of us spend so much time and energy and effort like making sure we do all the things to make sure we make the thing happen, as opposed to just like what is really in alignment and trusting that if that big great thing is available for you, it could happen. Just literally when I walk out the door, I might run into the CEO of Google, or I might run into, you know what I mean? It's like, you don't know where it's going to come from. The flow. Exactly.
Absolutely. Yes.
Like it gets to be easier.
It gets to be so much easier. And when you're in a place of service, one of the other things that I've personally experienced is when you're in a place of service and you are in alignment, what's interesting is that everything seems to, especially financially, it comes, but it doesn't always come the way that you expect it to.
Right. Yes.
And so in some places of my business where I've scaled back a bit, it's come from another place. Like I still show up and I'm still serving, and it all works itself out when I'm in that place. And that has been true for me every single time. I just stay in the flow and I focus on my own well-being and joy. Every single time I'm shown a different kind of paradigm that is available to me. And usually I've stepped back out of that and have been back in the, I need to work hard.
Right.
I've stepped back into that many, many times. But every time I'm in the flow state, that's when everything is easy. I make more money. I'm happier. Like, I don't know why it's so hard to just stay in that place.
Right? Well, that's the thing.
I'm being very mindful of it this time. I'm going to try to stay in the ease for a long time, even through this next stage of like launches and everything.
I love to hear that.
I'm going to keep reminding myself.
I'm going to remind
Don't make it hard for yourself.
I'm just going to text you and be like, let it be easy. Let it be easy. But that's the crazy thing, because it's like we live in this world that essentially validates hard work and validates pushing, grinding, moving, being successful, being productive, and we don't validate and really deem it worthy, the play, the joy, because it's not necessarily producing a result, but it's not the result that as a society we're really like trained to validate. Yeah. So I think we're in this like really delicious, which is why I love that you're coming from this space as someone who's really influential and someone who's also come from that very traditional, work, like rigid sort of structured like way of doing business. And so have I, and I feel myself slipping back into that too with all of the projects I have on my plate right now, and just choosing to remind myself that it's never going to be worth more than my happiness in my life, and you get to just kind of weave it in, but it is hard to kind of, because it's such a trained muscle too. It's just like, oh, we know how to get stuff done, like if we need to. So it's just kind of like retraining this new way of being and
asking for support and delegating and being like knowing that you are worthy of receiving the support that can take you to the next level as well. You don't have to carry it all yourself. I used to carry so much myself, and most of that was around not being able to fully communicate my needs. And the more I just communicate my needs and communicate my boundaries with the people around me, with the people that I work with, that's been really a game changer for me too. I
mean, I relate, and you're a Capricorn too, like me. So I feel we're like the little mountain goats. So we just keep
we take on everything.
We take on
like
everything.
I can take on the amount of work I can have on my plate in comparison to a lot of other people. Even though, don't get into the trap of comparing yourself to other people. I can handle so much before I feel any kind of stress or exhaustion. I can work from morning until the wee hours of the morning again, no problem. And I mean, it becomes a problem, but I can do that. And I know that asking for help and just receiving that and knowing like I'm worthy of receiving all the help that I need, and help not just in hiring in your business, but help with people around you. And I have a friend who I love this as an example. She reached out last week and she was like, I don't usually ask for help, but I'm in a space where I need some support. If anyone can watch my child, like if anyone wants to sign up for shifts, I would really appreciate it, and I really need support right now. She had never done that in her life, and I was so fucking proud of her, because even things like that, like can you ask the people who love you, who are close to you, who want to help you, tell them what you need. Tell them what you need, because it's a joy to support people that I love, and I know that it's a joy for them to support me too.
It's crazy how hard that can be, like to actually reach out, because we have these stories of I don't want to be a burden, and I don't want to feel like I don't have it all together, or I don't want to whatever it is, because I know that asking for help is something that's really challenging for a lot of people. So was there stuff that you had to move through in terms of actually realizing that you could ask for the help? Because obviously hiring is one thing, because you're paying someone and you're asking, it's a more formalized thing. And even recently, like I've started getting support more in my personal life, because it's just like little things, and I'm like, that right there is something I don't want to do, can't do, never going to find the time for it, and having that support is like so liberating.
I'm a believer in life sourcing, actually, before outsourcing in your business.
Tell me about that.
It's one of the first things that I did actually when I was growing my company. Is I felt like I didn't have it in my budget to hire a really solid like right hand in the business. But I was like, why am I cleaning my house every week? Why am I preparing this food? And so I got somebody to help me with life stuff, which was actually cheaper than some of the things that I needed support on in my business. So it freed up my time to be working on scaling the business. And even now, there's probably a lot of things that you could potentially get somebody else to do. And when you have a personal brand business, like I'm in a place right now where Copywriting, very challenging for me to hire for because of the certifications that I have, the training that I have, everything that needs to be woven into that copy. It's hard for me to find somebody else who can do that. And
it's hard at the best of times, let alone with all of
exactly. So getting somebody to do the other things that I was doing in my life that was not copy or that was not running the company at a high level, it all has to go. It all has to go to somebody else. So that was a big lesson for me to learn. And then I'm learning a lot in this new relationship that I'm in about asking for what I need. And I don't think I've ever done that before.
That's juicy. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think, again, it's a different context, but again, it's training this muscle of speaking what we want, like whether it's in the bedroom, whether it's in the boardroom, whether it's in friendships, like whatever. It's this muscle of, because I think a lot of it comes down to just like worthiness, really, right? Because it's like if we feel truly like worthy and like our request is worthy, then it stops some of that resistance. So how would you like maybe advise, or what are you coming up against and learning that you can share with us around training that muscle? I think we all need support in that.
Yeah, in training the muscle, I think you can start with the smaller things that you don't always voice, and notice where you have any sort of contraction when you don't speak and you don't communicate your needs. So for me, if I'm holding back on something or I'm not asking for something, it's all in my throat. Like my throat will get sore. I'll feel like I feel a block in it when there's been a situation where I could have communicated something, I could have asked for something, and I chose not to. And so just be aware, and now that I'm inviting you to be aware, you'll start to notice it more. Like where is it in your body? And it feels so good for me when I just push past that and I'm like, I'm gonna make one small request right now. And I used to also feel like if I was gonna ask for something, I always had to give something.
Yes.
And that's another mindset shift to make. You know, it's not, our relationships are not transactional of like, I need something from you, so I'm gonna have to give something to you. And when you show up and you are a person who is serving and doing big things in the world, it's usually a joy for the people around you to support you as well. So making small requests. In this relationship, I've been very committed to sharing all of me, to communicating every need, every desire. And it's an edge. It's an edge for sure. But every time I walk to it and I see what's there for me, I'm like, why didn't I do this sooner? And he wants to show up for me. And it comes down to it's trust too. It's like trusting that other people have got you, and we need community.
Oh my gosh,
we're not meant to be here and operate in the world all alone.
That's a whole point right there in itself. And I think that it's also around like discernment too, because it's like, if we're trying to retrain a muscle, we want to make sure we're training that in a muscle, like training that in a space that feels like it's safe. You know what I mean? Because it's like if we really have like a block around asking, and then you ask someone who's really not as likely to honor you in that space, then it's another piece of evidence for why maybe it's not safe to ask. You know, so I think like discernment is also really important when trying to give any news story and a possibility to like root in. Is like going to where it's the safest. And yeah, oh my gosh, community is everything. And I want to just like underline that, and I talk about it all the friggin' time, but it just absolutely is everything. Like LA is so fun because we have so many amazing humans here. Like there's just all of these epic people that can support and you can hang out with, and everyone is doing things, and it's just this bubble of creativity and love and joy and excitement. And like without that, LA wouldn't, like, none of us would even probably want to live here. Because it's like, this is the only reason
it's all about community for me. I love the ocean too. I love all of the nature in California, and I'm here for the people that are in my life here. And huge. That's everything. It's everything. And we're not meant to be here alone. So
tell me a little bit, because this is something that I know a lot of people ask me about, and a lot of people, not necessarily have a hard time with it, but they are looking for more ways to create community, create relationships, what are some of the ways that you've created that for yourself? Or what are some pieces of advice maybe that you could give to people that are like, I really want to find my community, I really want that in my life? Like, how have you kind of created that, or what can people do?
You can create it on your own if you feel like it's not available to you in your city. Like, start a meetup, start connecting with like-minded people around a certain topic. I found it challenging to do that where I was in Canada. There were a couple people who were kind of in my industry that I could meet with and that I felt really like seen by. And of course, there's the online world as well. And we have an opportunity now. I'm so grateful for the internet that connects all of us in ways that it didn't before. And there's still nothing that compares to the in-person, like, deep dives for me. And this is one of the reasons why I chose Los Angeles. And Los Angeles is a very expensive place to live.
True story.
Very expensive place to live. I could live somewhere else, and I did live somewhere else before coming here, where just what I pay for my rent here, I paid for my mortgage and all my expenses there. And it's totally worth it for me to be here and to be spending what I'm spending to be in Los Angeles because of that community. Like, it is the thing that I care about more than anything else. And I would just ask you to look at your life and look at where you are right now, and is where you are, is your environment supporting your next stage of evolution? And for me, being in this space is supporting where I'm going next, and it's worth investing in for me, and it was worth moving for. It's why I went through the pain of moving. And sometimes I hear a lot of people say, like, you can create that anywhere. Yes. And there's power in being in bigger hubs where there are more people and where you're more likely to find like-minded people. And for me, that's just everything. So it might even require a move.
No, I mean, I totally agree. I think
and you know this too from moving and moving around and not wanting to be where you grew up.
Totally. And it really is just that internal knowing of, because I think that you can, like, I created that in New Zealand too. Like, I had an amazing community that was, Conscious Boss Click was that big, like, was my desire to create community, and then it built into these events. And so I really do believe that if you don't have what it is you're looking for, you can create it. And then there might be a time where you'll also outgrow that. And I think that's kind of the evolution. Like, no matter where you are, if you are in a really small rural town, it might still require you to go to the next main town and start to build those relationships there. And then eventually you might get to the space where you're like, your country isn't big enough, or, you know, your state isn't big enough, and you need to make that next move. Because I truly believe, without a shadow of a doubt, in everything in my being, like, everything comes from relationships, like, whether it's happiness, joy, fulfillment, connection, but even like opportunities and, you know, ideas, and like all of that for me I can link everything back to really making sure I'm nurturing community and relationships, because that's the person who knows that person, and that you end up there, and then you end up here, and then that, and then this new business, and this, it just all is fostered out of this hub of relationship.
Absolutely.
So it's so important.
And I was, just for those of you who are like, but it's so expensive to move and there's resistance to that, I was afraid to come and live in Los Angeles, even just cost. And when I was looking at places, I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy, because it was so different from what I was used to. And I can see now that the doors that open here and the power of being in a bigger market, there's so much growth available to you, both in your business and personally from that. And yes, you're making that investment, but that investment was already paying off for me a few months in to being here.
Totally. I'm the same, and it was like always requiring that next stretch. Like, I just signed a lease on my place, and it was like a huge amount more than I ever thought I would ever pay, but at the same time, and so much more than I would ever pay if I was in New Zealand, but at the same time, it's given me so much grounding, so much like rooting down, so much space to continue to create. And then also I've just seen so many little new opportunities come because I had that stability in that room. And it's like, I think that's a big piece too, where it's like, you don't necessarily know the result of an action you take, right? Like you take an action like signing a lease or moving to LA or whatever. It's not always like a transaction. Like, okay, you did this and then this result is like all of a sudden the next day a client landed in your inbox or something like that. But it's like an energetic commitment, and then it just like changes, you know what I mean? It's like you make that commitment and that investment, and then the universe is like, oh, cool, she's here now, and then let me send this little thing over there or this other thing over there. It's just like part of this bigger.
And you start showing up differently. And we talk a lot in business about mindset, and mindset is only one piece of what I like to do in my coaching methodology with people, which is to really focus on embodiment and your sense of being. And I think the power is in going for the stretch goal, going for the place that is maybe a little bit out of your budget comfort or level. Out of your comfort level, and it's who you are being when you step into that space. And when I moved here into this like luxury resort, I was like, this is who I am. This is the life that I've created. I wake up every day and I go for a swim in my pool, and I go to my yoga class like in my building, and then I come up and I get some work done, and that's just, it became my life. And in upgrading my way of being and showing up as this like powerful woman in the world and like having this dream space, it just shifted my energy completely.
100%.
And you meet other people in this space too. So being here and being like spending more than I was comfortable with at the time, and now it feels like no big deal. I met so many people here who have incredible businesses, who connected me to opportunities. One of my first book deals actually came because I was sitting next to the vice president of the publishing company on a first class flight, because I had upgraded my flight to first class because I wanted to get a good rest on the plane. And I ended up having this amazing connection, and it connected me to a huge opportunity.
I love that.
And that was just because I decided that I was worth it, that I needed my rest, and then I was like, I'm gonna get all dressed up for that first class flight, and I like looked like a badass CEO, and I ended up getting that connection. So you just never know, and I think the environment that you're in, the spaces that you're hanging out in, it matters. I can't emphasize enough how much it matters for the growth of your business.
Yes, and the growth of you, because you are the driver of your business. And I mean, that's what I say. It's like you have to put yourself in the place of opportunity, right? You have to put yourself where opportunity is likely to live. And so
let that one land. That's
big, right? Because a lot of times I feel like we don't. There are probabilities and places where opportunities live more so than others. And so if things aren't coming your way, then it's, where do you need to put yourself to make sure that you increase those probability and those chances of that happening?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's dive into a little bit of this. Let's talk about this. Firstly, look at this beautiful book. If you're listening to the podcast, we have a full video up over on the link, which we'll put in the show notes. But you get to see this amazing book of Natalie's, which is stunning. So beautiful. So talk to me, because this is kind of a pivot, right? Like one of the last books was the Conquer Kit, right? With strategy and planning of your business, like
that's
every single
Still
day.
in a soulful way.
Yeah, totally.
But different.
So talk to us about this divine book. Like, why now for you with this book? It's definitely a pivot in terms of like commune with the cosmos. Like, it's talk to us about this book and about why all of this is so important for the way that we're moving forward in life and business.
So in this book, The Rituals, it's 40 practices that are meant to cultivate well-being, deepen your relationships, support you in finding your true sense of purpose.
Amazing. All the things we've been talking about.
All
now
the things
you know
that
exactly
we've
where
been
to go
talking
and get
about.
it.
These are like all the practices that have changed my life. Some from places that I have visited around the world. I've studied with some amazing teachers and healers and meditation masters over the years. And for me, in that space of constantly striving for the next thing, going after the next goal, and experiencing that burnout, I needed to return to me. I needed to come home to myself. And rituals have been one of the most powerful portals that I have walked through to bring me into a state of presence. And from that space of presence, a space of clarity and knowing and being able to hear my own inner voice. And the more that I stay in that space, the more I'm able to like flow and respond to life. And I think we live in a world now. Last year there were God knows how many habits books that came out from like all of these influencers and leaders, and habits for me are one more thing that are making us automated. Right. And we're not just automating systems right now, like we're automating our lives. Like we are automated. Yeah. And I don't want to live my life that way, because that's not where the aliveness is. That's not where my magic is. That's not where my gifts that I'm here to share with the world are. Like I'm not living fully when I'm living an automated life. Yeah. And habits, while we need them, they're meant to be automated. Like that's the nature of a habit. That's the whole point of them. Yeah. And so for me, rituals are about the present awareness, and it's in the present moment that you're able to embody and to create your future. So everything that you want to create in the future, like you have access to all of these different timelines that you can step into, and your presence is required for that. Like all of those different timelines are living right here and just asking you to make a choice right now in this moment. And the more I step into meditation, adventure, rituals, that's when I just naturally am making the choices that align with my highest path forward in the future that I want to wake up in.
Yes, girl. I love that.
So there's a lot in this book.
Well, date yourself.
I just randomly
picked that one. I'm like, oh, this was interesting.
This one is date yourself. Who says romance needs more than one person? Too often when we're single, we focus on finding a relationship as fast as we can to avoid being alone and looking at the parts of ourselves that need healing. And then when in a relationship, we get lost in it and begin to lose our personal identity. So I love this practice of dating myself, and I've continued to do it while I've been in this relationship. I was good at being single too, before this relationship came along. And, you know, I really believe that when you fall in love with another person to the level that you've fallen in love with yourself. And when I was single, I just lived my life like the entire world was in love with me.
Oh my God, I love it.
Like how I would walk out into the world, and
God, I love that.
I would ask myself, like, if I was going on a date right now, because we make so much time for dates and for other people, like give all of that to you.
Yes. I love that you opened it on that one, because that was such a big revelation for me just on the weekend in my journey. Like, it was like I felt this, it's because I've been single for a few years now and I've been dating and all the things, but it was just like, I felt like all of a sudden this click in where I was like, oh my God, like, whoa, I'm such a queen. Like, it was like such this ownership of like who I am and how powerful I am, and like how like this deepening of this worthiness and this love that like I feel like I've been waiting for so long. And it was so powerful, and I'm like, the person that I'm going to manifest from that space is totally different from like someone that I might have manifested before landing in that, you know, because I have an amazing life and I do the work, and I've, you know, romanced myself for an entire weekend and, you know, took myself away and just like all of these little things. And then it just finally like clicked in, and I was like, oh my God. And like, I wouldn't be surprised if I meet like someone really amazing soon, but it's just like, it just was like such this level of like, oh yes, I am so magical, you know, and like that person's going to be so magical too. And I think that, you know, I think this running, a lot of people, and I think also honestly, like real talk, I think a lot of people are in relationships that they shouldn't be in, and that aren't amazing. And obviously everybody has different standards for what they want in their life, so that's perfect and fine. But I think that when it comes from the space of wanting to fill the void, people end up in situations that, you know, aren't really the conduit for transformation and connection, because the person that you choose to be with is like the most important decision you're going to make, right?
It's a very important decision.
Very important decision.
Very important
Which
decision.
I want to just briefly, just also, this one is in a beautiful, amazing relationship right now.
Yes.
But you did some work to get
I did
to
a
that
lot of
relationship.
work.
This is like the Natalie Mcneil approach to like finding your person. How many dates did you go on in 1 year?
At least like 150.
That's like literally one every 2 days, guys. Like
somewhere around there.
Like
and
at least 3
by
weeks.
dates too, I want to just clarify, it wasn't like I was going to dinner and a movie with people. Like I was getting to the point
15
where
minutes here,
it was
15
very
minutes
systematized. I
Of
was
course.
sometimes just meeting people for a very quick coffee, like in between meetings, and I liked it that way because you get a sense very
know if you want round 2 or not.
If you want round 2, exactly. So I learned early on, it was one of the mistakes I made at first, was like going on these dates and being like, I'm with this person for another 3 hours and I don't want to be with them. And it felt so good to be self-honoring and one, just change it all up and start meeting with people for like 15, 20 minutes.
Asking for what you want, what works for you.
Asking for what I want. And 2, being okay with leaving in the middle of a date that was a huge edge for me because
that would be for
I'm
me.
like, do I want to waste 3 hours? And it's never a waste because that person is always mirroring something back to you and you're discovering new parts of yourself. And that was dating for me, and my time is precious. And I have people that I love that I want to be hanging out with. So I had quite an adventure in dating, but I got to find out exactly what I want and what I don't want. And that was so valuable. And then I started getting closer and closer. Like I started off with this big pool, and then I was like, no, I'm going to need this and this and this. And then it was a much smaller pool. And from there, I had some beautiful relationships that then allowed me to do deeper work and fall even more in love with my life and really own my own power and magic and feel like I am so in love with me right now.
I love that.
I love my life so much that someone is going to have to be so amazing for me to commit to that person.
Oh my God.
Because I'm so happy on my own. Like he has to be, I have to feel like together we can do more for each other in the world what either of us could do on our own. And that's going to be a stretch. And so from that place of just being so happy. That's a stretch when you can already
do so much on your own.
I was so happy. And then I met him and I was like, okay, he's my guy.
He's the guy. Yeah.
He's a powerful mirror.
Natalie's love life always
so much
inspiring. Is always inspiring to me. Yeah. I'm also inspired by the fact that you somehow managed to get your team to support you in your whole dating structure. I'm still figuring out. I need to talk to you offline about how you actually did that.
Systemized my whole dating life. I think I have a future in like relationship coaching for powerful women and matchmaking. If I was going to do, if I could, I was asked a question actually by a coach at an event that I was at recently, and they were like, if you were not allowed to do anything that you're doing right now,
what else would
you weren't allowed to do any of it at all, what would you be doing? I was like, obviously I would be a matchmaker and I would be helping powerhouse women find the most epic love.
Okay, so how come we haven't spoken about this yet? Okay, we're gonna finish in a minute so I can grill Natalie on why she hasn't set me up with someone just yet.
I think I would make a really good matchmaker. I see what's missing from apps, and
I love that.
Yeah.
I
don't have time right now in this moment, but
that's a whole thing.
It's gonna be a whole thing in the future.
That's a whole thing, actually.
I love love so much.
Oh my God, you're so cute. Like Alyssa texted me the other night and was just like, text me about this person. She's like, I'm committed to you finding your love. Like, it's just so cute.
Alyssa's always very committed to people finding their love. Yeah, she was such a stand for my love.
So sweet. I love it. It's great. You have to have support on this journey.
Absolutely.
You know? Seriously. Okay, Nat, I love you. I'm so excited about everything that you have, that you're leaning into, and that the world gets to just experience you in such a bigger, fuller way. Then you're just like full embodiment. So I'm pumped for that. What's the best way for people to stay in touch with you? When is this glorious book coming out? Any final words you want to share, please?
The book is out November 5th, 2019.
Amazing. My God, soon.
Soon. You can visit me on social media at Natalie Macneil. So come say hi on Instagram, send me a DM and let me know your biggest takeaway from this interview. And then we've got like all new website and stuff coming at nataliemacneil.com. Depending on when this is out, it will be launching probably around the same time. There's also shetakesontheworld.com. And
yeah, this will probably be launching right around the time the book is out. So,
okay, great.
Yeah.
So the nataliemacneil.com is where
all of that will be in the show notes.
Find me
Yes.
and come, and I have a powerful ritual for you to connect with your future self in that.
There we go.
In that space and on nataliemacneil.com. So come visit me, and I'd love to connect with
Amazing.
you. And thank you for having me. This has been
Oh my gosh,
such a great conversation.
Pleasure, my love. So grateful. All right, that is it for today. We'll see you guys soon.